I told you, I love watching like book summary videos, and like now it's my new thing. So let's get into it. I think in the previous book summary video I did the Frieda McFadden book, The Teacher, but the one I was actually supposed to read was The Housemaid. So I'm going to do The Housemaid now. If you see me looking down, it's because I've got some notes, because let me tell you, she was complex, and I was reading this at the same time as one of my friends from work was reading it, and you should see our messages back and forth. She had these crazy post-it notes, like writing her theories down, because she was like a couple chapters ahead of me, because she started it a little bit before I did. But crazy. So let's get into it. The Housemaid. So we're going to start with the main character, one of the main characters, Millie. Millie, we find out she's basically just been released from prison, or released from prison not too long ago, not just released. She's lost her previous job, she's lost her apartment, she's sleeping out of her car, she's just desperate, she's just looking for a job. Girl just needs a job. So then she gets an interview to be a housemaid for this really wealthy like family. So she goes, she doesn't think she's going to get it. So introducing second main character, we've got Nina Winchester. She's the lady of the house essentially, and basically she's like really glamorous and stuff, and she's like interviewing Millie, and Millie's thinking like, oh, is this like, I'm never going to get this job. Like as soon as she runs a background check and finds out that I've been in prison, I'm never going to get this job. And she keeps doing all of that. However, somehow she gets offered the job, and she's like, oh, maybe she doesn't care. Like maybe she didn't run the background check, maybe she's stupid. But she's like, I don't care because I need a job. But then like Nina is like very different. Like when Millie comes and joins, and like she's gonna like live in the house and stuff, when she comes in, she's very different from when they did the original interview. And then we're going to introduce another character, which is Andrew Winchester, who's obviously the husband. And once Millie's moved in, she's like Andrew is very like charming and stuff like that, whereas Nina's really erratic. And they've got a daughter called Cecilia, who's like really like defiant and spoiled, and the only people she listens to is Nina or Andrew. Anyway, let's go back to Millie. So Millie's forced to stay in this like even though their house is massive, in like this really small like attic room where the door locks from the outside, and there's like scratches on the inside, and it looks like someone's trying to escape. So she's like, interesting, like this is a whole house and they're making me stay here, but it's whatever. It's better than sleeping in her car, right? Probably wrong, but whatever. Anyway, so Millie's getting settled into the house, but then like weird stuff keeps happening. Like Nina's becoming increasingly more like chaotic. She destroys the kitchen, and then she blames Millie for like small things, like I made these PTA notes, like where did you put them? And then she forces Millie to like redo things that she had like already done, or like she says like, oh, go pick up my daughter, but then when she gets there, the daughter's like getting picked up by another mom and going to karate and stuff, and then like she's like bad mouthing her to like the other moms and stuff like that. But Millie just assumes it's because Nina is like mentally unwell, because she finds out at one point that Nina had been in a psychiatric hospital for trying to drown her daughter Cecilia. Crazy. But anyway, it's like a whole bunch of things happening. I need to introduce another character, which is Enzo. Now Enzo is a landscaper. He doesn't work exclusively for the Winchesters, he works on like the whole block, but he's at the Winchesters property a lot because it's big. But he essentially so Enzo doesn't speak English. He doesn't speak English very well. And he's like this Italian like landscaper guy, but he still manages to warn Millie that, oh, there's like something dangerous, and she's like, yeah, it's Nina. Nina is insane. But anyway, over time, Millie starts going closer to Andrew, and he confides in her about his marital struggles. And then what happens? They start an affair. Now let me tell you how this happens, right? So basically, Andrew's like, oh, I want to do something special for Nina, find out when she's free, let's book tickets for this show. So then Nina tells Millie like, okay, I'm free like next Sunday, or like a week from Sunday or something like that. And then she's like, okay, I'll book the tickets. So she books the tickets, la la la. Then she says, like, oh, I booked the tickets. And then Nina's like, why did you book the tickets for then? I told you a week from Sunday I'm going to pick Cecilia up from summer camp. And then Millie's like, oh, well, you told me. And she's like, yeah, a week from Sunday. Like, and she's like, no, but I asked you before this Sunday. Anyway, it's like a whole like date timeline confusion thing. And then Millie's like, well, why can't you just send someone else to collect her? And she goes, are you stupid? Like, my daughter has been at this summer camp for weeks. Of course I'm going to be the one to go and collect her. Are you crazy? And so she's like, you're going to have to pay for the tickets out of your money, like that we pay you. And that would basically be like 3 months of her salary, because she booked the tickets and also stay at the Plaza Hotel in New York. But now she can't go. So then Andrew's like, oh, don't worry, sis. Like, they cancel the tickets. Anyway, Nina goes to collect her daughter Cecilia, and then he has to tell Millie, he's like, oh, didn't actually cancel the tickets because it's non-refundable, but here, have the tickets, go and see it with your friends. And then she's like, I don't really have any friends, plus I've never really been to a Broadway show. She doesn't say it's because she's been in prison since she was like 17 years old, but she just says, oh, I've never been. And he's like, well, that's no good, you must attend. So of course they're gonna go together. Crazy. They go to the show, they have dinner, obviously they're drinking alcohol. Too much alcohol means they can't drive home. So then what? They go and they stay in the same hotel room. Need I say any more? We already know what's happened. The affair begins. Anyway, so she starts an affair believing that he's in a loveless marriage with a like mentally unstable wife. And then Nina's behavior is like getting crazy, and then Andrew decides he's gonna kick her out and commit to a relationship with Millie, like literally the next day. One of the other reasons why the whole relationship breaks down is because we find out that Nina visits a fertility doctor and finds out that she can't have any more children. And also Cecilia is not actually Andrew's daughter, but is only Nina's daughter, and he is just like a stepdad, but has known Cecilia and has been taking care of her since like she was a young baby. Anyway, the next day after this whole thing, so like I said, Andrew's kicked out Nina's off. She's done this whole, you can't do this to me, but then he's like, yes I can, this is my house. So he kicks her out, so she goes. Where is Cecilia at this point? Oh, she's still at the summer camp. Actually, I have no idea where she is. I think she might be at the summer camp. Did she go and collect her from the summer camp? I don't remember. Anyway, so then she goes, and then, like I said, Millie and Andrew are now a ting-ting. But literally the next day, Millie wakes up and she's locked in the attic, and she then finally realizes that Andrew has now imprisoned her in the attic. So now we switch to Nina's perspective. And then we get her story of how she fell for Andrew's charm when she was working at Andrew's office. She'd just given birth to Cecilia, but she needed money, so she didn't take maternity leave, and she was working there. And then so finally, like, everything's sweet, everything's good, and then they get married like pretty quickly, but everything's sweet. And then we find out that she's basically getting routinely locked in the attic and tortured by Andrew. And I'm sorry, the way like I felt sick and like my teeth were grinding on some of the things. Like, one of the first like things he does is basically, after they get married, I think it's like 3 months after they're married or something like that, she hasn't like dyed her hair blonde, so her roots are showing, and he's like, oh, your roots are showing. And she's like, oh, I just forgot to go to the hairdressers, I'll go. And then he says to her, oh, I need your help to like get this paperwork from the attic, bearing in mind she'd never been to the attic at this point. She's like, okay. She goes in, and it's like a little room with like this little like cot in the corner, like a little bed, a window, that's it, nothing else. She's like, where's the paperwork? And he's like, oh, it's in the closet. She opens the closet, all that's in there is a bucket. She's like, what? And then the door shuts, and then she's like trying to get like unlock the door, and then she's like, oh, it must have just shut, but he's locked her in. And guess why he's locked her in? He's like, oh, you're only going to learn this way, this is your discipline, this is what you need to do. He asks her that she has to pull out 100 strands of her hair, and he needs to be able to see the root, so it has to be from her head, not from her hairbrush, because she does suggest that. Put it in this envelope, and then he's going to count it. So she does, and then be like, she has to, because otherwise he's not going to let her out. Anyway, so then she does it. he counts it. He's like, oh, you did it, but what a shame. There's only 99 because one of them doesn't have the root. You have to do it again. The way I shivered, my head was like, my scalp was hurting and it wasn't even my hair, but it was like a bunch of things that he was making, like any small thing that would happen, like any small defiance he was making, he was like torturing her. Anyway, so then she does that, but then when she threatens to leave him, he tries to drown Cecilia, and then he convinces everybody else that she's the one that drowned Cecilia, and that's why she had to go to psychiatric hospital. But then he also like basically makes her believe that she made it all up in her head, which is crazy, 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 crazy. And then it's only when she returns from the psychiatric hospital, everything's fine, and then something happens where it's like his mom's like, oh, you shouldn't leave the light on, I told you so many times, and then she tries to cover up for him and says that she did it, as in Nina does. And then this is this bit that confuses me. And then later on that day, at this point, she thinks that she's made up the whole thing about being tortured because she was like mentally unstable, and so she's like, oh, it didn't actually. And she's like, oh, I'm going to face my fear and go to the attic. And she goes up there, only to be locked in again with all these bright lights and stuff. And she realizes she wasn't capping. This had happened to her, but he made everybody else believe that it was not happening to her. And so she had to live with it, because otherwise he would threaten Cecilia, basically. And Cecilia was like the only thing that was important to her. So she was like, so she's basically like trapped. So then we find out that this whole time that Nina has hired Millie for a reason. She knew that Andrew would seduce Millie, and that's why she put Millie in the attic, where so he could like visualize her, and like that she would be dependent on him, and like la la la. And then she started doing everything like wrong in the marriage. Like she made it look like she couldn't have kids. She like forced the doctor, like she blackmailed the doctor to do that. Also, by the way, Enzo's been helping her this whole time. This Donnie can speak English, but he actually figured out what was happening to to Nina, and was like trying to get her to go. And she's like, I can't, because he's gonna like kill me or kill my daughter or whatever. And so that's when she like hatched this whole plan. But then the reason she picked Millie, because she did investigate her. She hired a private investigator and find out that she had a very violent history. And she was like, well, she doesn't have anything to lose. She's not a pushover. She can do this. She can do this. Then we go back to Millie's perspective, and now she is Andrew's prisoner and is being forced to do painful tasks. Basically, the reason she's trapped in there is because she left the books that are on the bookshelf on the table, and he's like, don't disrespect my property. Now put these three very heavy books on your stomach for like, I don't know, like 3 hours or something. And she's like, I'm not going to do it. She's really defiant. But then she realizes that she's going to like die of dehydration if she doesn't. So then she does it, only to find out that he's like, oh, you only did it for 2 hours and 59 minutes. So you have to redo it. So basically he's now torturing her and like disciplining her the way he used to do it to Nina. Anyway, then what actually happens? Oh, also Andrew's got surveillance cameras in there, so that's how he's like able to do it. Anyway, but then Millie turns the tables on Andrew because she finds pepper spray. Nina put it there in the cupboard, and so when he comes in to like once she's done the resting the books on her belly again for the second time, he comes in, she pepper sprays him and then locks him in there, and then gets him, like basically she flips the table and now she's torturing him. Okay, and then like she takes she takes the torture into like a whole other level. Like she keeps saying to him like, oh, I'm gonna let you out, but just not yet, and then she's making him do like all this crazy things. Anyway, but Enzo is still keeping an eye on the house, and he's realized that Millie hasn't left the house in like several days. So he's like to Nina, you've done this, you need to go back, you need to check it. So then she gets there, and she's fully expecting Millie to either be dead or like locked up in the cupboard or in the attic, whatever. She gets there, she opens the door, it's Andrew's battered and beaten body that she sees in there. She's like, what? And then Millie's like, and she's like holding pepper spray, and then basically Millie gets Nina to check if Andrew's dead, and Andrew is dead. At this point, Nina feels bad. Nina's like, you know what, you go, I'm gonna tell them that I let you have the week off, because like none of us were going to be here, and also I didn't realise, because of Andrew's busy work schedule, that he was going to be in the house, so he must have got locked in the attic, and I didn't realise, and now he's died of dehydration, even though that wouldn't really explain the fact that he's pulled his teeth out. That's a whole other thing. But anyway, so we find out that the narrator at the start, because right at the start we're told that there's a body in the attic and like the police are there, but we assume that it's Millie who's narrating that point. We now find out it's actually Nina, because Millie has been sent away from the scene. So Nina's being questioned by the police, and she's like, oh, they're gonna take me away, but at least I've been in rehab before, and like they'll just say a psychotic break, and also at least my daughter's safe now because Andrew's not around, because he did. And so she's like, whatever. But then, as luck would have it, the detective who's on the case, his daughter was previously engaged to and abused by Andrew. So he basically is like, listen, I know something's sus here, but I'm just going to pretend that it's not, because this man probably deserved to die. So she's like, whatever. So Nina is able to like leave and everything's fine. And then in the epilogue, oh, I forgot to even say that she's like, okay, I might have been saved by the police, but surely his parents are going to know, like something's up. But then guess what? The craziest thing, the mom and dad come, the dad's like, whatever, like I don't think he's too much of an important part of this, but the mom's like to her like, oh, I told Andrew about dental hygiene when he was younger, and I even pulled his tooth out to discipline him. Are you seeing how this is going? He's got mommy issues basically, and he clearly didn't learn, and so I'm glad that you took the initiative and disciplined him. I'm glad you grew a backbone, basically. So we find out that essentially the whole reason that Andrew was the way he was is because he was also taught, not saying that this is any reason to do what he did, but he was being tortured by his mother also. And so his mother basically knows that Andrew died because of Nina, even though it wasn't Nina, it was actually Millie, but whatever. But she's like, I'm just glad you grew a backbone and did what you needed to do. You're joking me. Anyway, in the epilogue, we realise it's like, I think it's a year later, Millie is now living off the money that Nina had given her after Andrew's death, but then she still wanted a job, so she gets another interview to be a housemaid for another wealthy woman. And when she's doing the interview, she realises that this woman has a bruise on her arm, and then she also finds out that Nina is the one who recommended her to this lady. And Millie basically quickly realises that the reason Nina has recommended her is because this woman is also trapped in an abusive relationship and she wants help, and so she's offering her a job, but really not as a housemaid, as like murder for hire essentially. And so Millie accepts the job and officially steps into the role of protector of battered women. Now, the reason this part is important is because I believe there are 2 more books in this like housemaid series. I haven't read them yet, but let me tell you some crazy this torture stuff. I can't get behind it. I really can't. Anyway, imagine listening to that. I told you the audible gasps I was having, the ferocious keyboard typing I was doing. It was insane. Also, I realised I've been like sitting with such poor posture this entire time. But anyway, that's the book review. So if you didn't want to read The Housemaid or listen to the audiobook, I don't know how long it is, 9 hours, 11 hours, I don't really know, 9 hours probably, then you can just listen to this, I don't know, like 20-minute summary, 15-minute summary, I don't really know how long it is. Also, these glasses make me look like a grandma, and the hair style is also not helping. I look like from, you know, that little girl from Matilda who gets swung round by her pigtails by the Trunchbull and like thrown over the gate. I think I'm giving that energy today. I really am. Anyway, ta-ra till next time.